In Texas, farmers weren't just fighting animals anymore. They were fighting an army. Not soldiers with uniforms or flags, but a fast-breeding, land-destroying force of muscle, tusks, and instinct. More than 2 million strong. Wild hogs didn't arrive all at once. They spread silently, year after year, until entire counties woke up surrounded. Fields that once fed families were turned into craters overnight. Fences were shredded. Irrigation lines crushed. Crops vanished before sunrise. This wasn't ordinary wildlife damage. This was systemic collapse. Texas became ground zero. An estimated 2.6 million feral hogs now roam the state, causing hundreds of millions of dollars in damage every single year. And the worst part? The population isn't stable. It's exploding, growing nearly 20% annually, expanding northward mile by mile, crossing property lines like they don't exist. Because to them, they don't. To understand why this problem spiraled out of control, you have to understand what these animals really are. Wild hogs in Texas aren't pure wild boars. There's something far more dangerous. A hybrid. A biological accident centuries in the making. The story begins in 1539, when Spanish explorers released domestic pigs into the wild as a walking food supply. Many escaped. For centuries, they survived quietly. Then came the second mistake. In the early 1900s, wealthy landowners imported Eurasian wild boars from Europe for sport hunting. Bigger, meaner, built for survival. The two populations interbred. The result was a super pig, combining the aggression and toughness of Eurasian boars with the insane reproduction rate of domestic pigs. A perfect invader. A female hog can start reproducing at just 6 months old. Her pregnancy lasts only 4 months. Each litter can produce up to a dozen piglets. And within weeks of giving birth, she can get pregnant again. 2 full litters per year. The math is terrifying. Remove 100 hogs, leave a few females behind, and the population replaces itself in less than 2 years. This isn't random growth. It's exponential. A biological algorithm designed for domination. But numbers alone don't explain the destruction. What makes wild hogs truly devastating is how they interact with the land. Their snouts act like bulldozer blades, powered by massive neck muscles. They root through soil relentlessly, ripping up crops, seeds, and irrigation systems in minutes. A single sounder, 20 to 30 hogs, can destroy $10,000 worth of crops in one night. And here's the shock. Less than 10% of the damage comes from what they eat. The rest is pure destruction. Trampling, rooting, ruining fields beyond repair. Texas farmers weren't just losing money. They were losing control. And when the invasion reached this scale, everyone assumed the solution was obvious. Unleash the hunters. What no one expected was that hunting would make everything worse. The real failure was only just beginning. Faced with an invasion of this scale, the response seemed obvious. If wild hogs were the problem, then hunters would be the solution. Texas opened the gates. No closed seasons. No bag limits. Day or night rifles, night vision, helicopters. Anything was allowed. It became one of the most aggressive hunting policies in America. On paper, it looked perfect. In reality, it failed catastrophically. Hunters did what hunters naturally do. They targeted trophies. The biggest males. The massive tusk boars that looked impressive in photos and on walls. But those animals weren't the engine of the invasion. They were irrelevant. One single male can breed dozens of females. Removing him barely slows reproduction. The real threat, the females and young pigs, were largely untouched. Hunting wasn't controlling the population. It was pruning branches while the roots grew deeper. Worse, hunting pressure changed hog behavior. Sounders began moving only at night. They avoided open ground. They learned patterns, adjusted routes, and became harder to track. Intelligence spread through survival. The animals adapted faster than humans expected. Then came the bounty programs. Pay cash for every dead hog. It sounded logical. But money always changes behavior. Instead of eliminating hogs, bounties created incentives to keep them alive. Some people quietly maintained breeding populations to guarantee future payouts. Others transported hogs across county lines to claim multiple rewards. In extreme cases, landowners began feeding hogs, fattening the very animals destroying their crops. Because dead hogs meant income, the invasion wasn't shrinking. It was being farmed. So farmers turned to traps. Traditional box traps had been used for generations. Steel cages baited with corn. Catch 1 or 2 pigs, reset, repeat. At first, it seemed to work. But wild hogs aren't stupid. They're observant. They watch. When a trap caught 1 or 2 members of Sounder, the rest learned instantly. They saw the danger, smelled it, remembered it. These survivors became what farmers call trap smart, and they didn't keep that knowledge to themselves. They passed it on. Within weeks, entire Sounders avoided traps completely. Farmers unknowingly trained their enemy to be smarter, more cautious, and nearly impossible to catch. Every failed attempt made the next one harder. It was a losing war. Hunting spread them. Bounties fueled corruption. Traps educated survivors. Year after year, the damage climbed. Fields were destroyed faster than they could be replanted. Farmers weren't just frustrated. They were desperate. That desperation forced a shift. The people who finally cracked the code stopped thinking like hunters. They stopped thinking like farmers. They started thinking like military strategists. Instead of reacting, they studied. Instead of chasing, they observed. Instead of trying to catch a few animals, they asked a dangerous new question. What if you didn't catch some of the Sounder? What if you erased the entire bloodline in one move? That question changed everything. Because the breakthrough didn't start with a weapon. It started with intelligence. And the most powerful weapon in this new war was a camera. The breakthrough didn't arrive with louder guns or faster helicopters. It arrived quietly, patiently, and almost invisibly. The farmer's first real weapon wasn't steel or firepower. It was information. Cellular trail cameras changed the battlefield overnight. These weren't ordinary cameras that stored footage on memory cards. These cameras transmitted images instantly, straight to a farmer's phone, day or night, rain or dust, without ever stepping foot near the animals. For the first time, farmers could see without being seen. They learned exactly when the hogs moved, which trails they preferred, how many traveled together, which females led the Sounder, which piglets followed. Patterns emerged. Routes repeated. Behavior became predictable. This wasn't hunting anymore. It was surveillance. And the data revealed the fatal flaw of old traps. Small traps didn't fail because they were weak. They failed because they were partial. Catching 2 or 3 hogs was worse than catching none. Survivors learned. Survivors adapted. So the question became brutally simple. How do you capture every single hog at once? The answer was scale. Farmers abandoned box traps and built corral traps, massive circular enclosures made of reinforced steel panels. Some were wide enough to hold 40, even 50 hogs. The gate stayed open. Nothing looked threatening. No wires. No pressure plates. No sudden movements. Then came the most important phase, pre-baiting. For days, sometimes weeks, farmers did nothing but feed the hogs. Corn scattered outside. Bigger piles placed deep inside the corral. Night after night, the sounder returned. Fear faded. Routine formed. The trap became familiar, comfortable, safe. The hogs weren't walking into a cage. They were walking into their favorite restaurant. This phase required extreme patience. Many farmers failed here. They acted too soon. The successful ones waited. They waited until every hog, including the dominant sow, entered freely and confidently. Only then did the real innovation appear. The gate wasn't triggered by the hog. It was triggered by a smartphone. A live video feed streamed directly to the farmer, from miles away, from a kitchen table, from a truck parked in town. The farmer watched his hogs enter one by one. He counted them. He waited, and when the final pig stepped inside, one tap, the gate slammed shut instantly. No warning, no human scent, no sound of gunfire. From the hog's perspective, it was supernatural. 1 second they were eating, the next captured. No survivors, no lessons learned, no offspring left behind. Entire bloodlines erased in a single silent moment. Within hours, the trapped hogs were humanely euthanized. What once took months of chasing now took minutes of decision-making. The trap smart problem vanished because there was no one left to become smart. But the true power of the system didn't stop at one farm. Farmers began sharing information, text messages, group chats, alerts, sounder moving east. 30 hogs spotted last night. They'll reach your fence by morning. This created a coordinated defense grid. Traps weren't isolated anymore. They were synchronized. When hogs fled one property, they entered another trap. There were no safe corridors left.